Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Secret Origins of Mint Condition. I am one of your hosts, James, and with me is Joe.
Hi, folks.
And Chris.
Hey, y'all.
And, we've been doing this podcast for a little over a year now, and we enjoy talking about things in pop culture, but we've so far also had 3 remembrance episodes, or rather 3 remembrances since we've done this, with 3 people we were talking about. Unfortunately, today is another remembrance episode because just a few days ago, we learned of the passing of the great Kevin Conroy, who is the voice of Batman. And in my mind, he is the one true Batman. It's always hard talking about people who influence you and inspire you and have made the art that you love. And we've said that many times, remembered other artists on the show, but this one I think hit particularly hard because Kevin Conroy, Batman, as we've discussed many times, is an influence on all of us. He appeared on all of our lists of greatest heroes. Kevin Conroy brought that character to life in a way that, again, I think he's the perfect Batman because he brought him to life, the Batman that I always, want, and the Batman I always think Batman is, even if he's not written that way on the page. And he's always, in my mind, the voice of Batman. And he brought us a Batman who was the Dark Knight, but also had compassion and had humanity. And because sometimes people who write the books, as much as we love some of the books, they write Batman too dark, or they write him too insensitive, or too cold and too callous and too calculating. And Kevin Conroy's Batman had that, but he also was able to temper it with a sense of humanity. It was a real shock, and it was a real loss to hear about this news.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you mentioned that tempers it with humanity because I don't know if he, I didn't know the man as acutely as I feel the loss. I didn't know the man, but I was listening to a friend's. He does a radio show called "It's All Geek to Me," and he shared this cameo that Kevin Conroy did a short while ago, where he's trying to share an encouraging message, but he talks about Batman answering the darkness and hate with love for fellow man. And it's interesting because it's not something that I had really considered before, but the actor in me is very, very interested in the notion of, rather than him trying to lend Batman humanity, if that's just literally how Kevin Conroy saw Batman, is just that this is how he shows his love for other people, which is obviously comes from broken background for Bruce Wayne and all that stuff. But I also find it interesting because I think of it in terms of what in that great episode of Justice League Unlimited where Terry McGinnis, spoiler alert, there are going to be a bunch of spoilers in this probably, but Terry McGinnis learns that he was actually cloned with Bruce's DNA or somehow he not cloned exactly, but he does carry Bruce's DNA within him as a project of Cadmus, because Amanda Waller said there always has to be a Batman. And Amanda Waller, after spending years being a sort of a rival of Batman, right, talks about how she's never met in that same episode. Talks about how she's never met a man who loves his fellow man as much as Batman does. And I think that's what a lot of, when we say that some Batman stories are just, they're too dark, they're written from too cold or too callous a standpoint, I think that's what they're missing. It's not just they're missing his humanity, because cruelty is very human, frankly, as we see on a unfortunately regular basis. But it's that they're missing the notion that that this isn't just a thing he's doing for revenge. He's doing this out of love for his fellow man to make sure that what happened to him never happens again. So, exactly. So I always found that interesting, and even more so now in the wake of his death, to learn that was the approach he took to that character.
And also, he approached the character. I know the writing is there too, but the way he delivered it, his Batman was humorous, not Adam West humorous, but he was humorous.
Wasn't campy.
Again, spoilers for the Batman Beyond episode Out of the Past, when we learn Ra's survived through his daughter Talia, and Terry comes in to save Bruce from his mind being transferred in. Ra's mind is going to be transferred to him, and Terry's like, "Ra's, this is so disturbing," and Bruce goes, you disturbing to you, she kissed me, and it's just like, he's funny. Bruce is
See,
funny.
it's funny because when you went to that episode, my first thought was actually the beginning of the episode when they're watching the musical of Batman, and it's just they're singing a song, a superstitious, cowardly lot, and and Terry's talking about, and Bruce just says, "You hate me, don't you?" And Terry says, "What? This is Shui," which of course is cool in the future. So he says, "This is Shui," and Bruce immediately answers, "This is Schwarbage." Like, no, I agree with you on the humor. I think that's why for me Kevin Conroy was the best Batman ever, because he wasn't just Batman, he was also a brilliant Bruce Wayne, but he colored in all the humor too. One of my favorite parts, and I know we're going to get to this later, but I'm probably just jumping the gun, but the episode Bane, where we meet Bane for the first time, and he like wrecks the Batmobile, and Batman,
Yeah,
he says, "He trashed my car, Alfred."
that's my
Between
car.
you guys, that's real personal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's also the whole I forget which episode it is, because there's so much to rewatch, and I wanted to rewatch all of it before we did this, but I forget what episode it is, but Alfred like breaks a vase, and Bruce is like, "Don't worry, I'll just take it out of your salary."
Yeah.
But Joe,
Yeah,
Joe,
yeah.
you know, Chris and I have been going on a little bit here. What are your thoughts about Kevin Conroy's passing?
Well, let's see. The Batman the Animated Adventures premiered about 1992, right? I believe that's correct. Yeah.
They
So,
started recording in '91 and it premiered
yeah.
in
Yeah. So, I was in my late 30s at that point. I had left cartoons or animation behind. Nothing, never comic books. That's the show that got me back into watching animated adventures again. Animated cartoons. It was just like, okay. After that, it was the X-Men. It was the Great Spider-Man cartoon from that era. But drawn in because I sat down and watched this. So wait a minute, I know this is on in the afternoon for kids, but this is really written for adults. I get this. This is beyond entertainment. This is art, and so much of its success had to do with Kevin Conroy playing the dual role of Bruce Wayne and the Batman, and just making it so convincing, and not only speaking to children but to adults. So kudos to an incredible job. He was amazing. Yeah, he brought me back to animated adventures.
I mean, yes, yeah. That kind of paved the doorway for, I think, taking these comic book characters and making serious, thought-provoking art with them in terms of the animated
Mhm.
realm. This was the beginning of the Batman the Animated Series, and I mean, he's done over. I've just watched so many videos about him and his life the last few days. I mean, he was over 60 projects he was attached to as Batman
Wow.
since the beginning of Batman the Animated Series. And Chris, I think you've mentioned this many times on the podcast, but we have to just mention it again. As brought up in many of the interviews and behind the scenes I've been watching, is that he's the first actor to portray Batman who made Bruce Wayne the affectation and not Batman.
Yeah,
It's
and as
Right.
far as I know, he's the only one to have done it that way. It's actually something that I as an actor, I think I have thought back to a lot. It's the first episode. If you really want to see, I know we're gonna some of the episodes that I think are like my favorite Batman the Animated Series episodes. It's not because of Kevin Conroy, because he's just always there, right? He's in every episode. But some of the ones that I really like, for example, the man who killed Batman, we don't see Batman for most of the episode. So that's not like a favorite Kevin Conroy moment. That's like a favorite episode of mine. But if you really, really want to see how like Kevin Conroy nails it out of the gate, it's the very first episode of the series on Leather Wings. And I think I've mentioned this before.
Mm.
Stick with me if I'll keep it brief. But he's in the cave examining evidence when suddenly Alfred comes down and he says, you have a phone call. Bruce gets on the phone, flips the switch, and is talking like Bruce. And he brings it up and registers. He goes, appreciate the help, Doc. I'll return the favor next time you're raising funds. Bye-bye. Flips it off and immediately goes, this computer checked that fiber against every animal species known to man. I went to them because I thought they might know something we didn't. That hair wasn't a brown bat's. And the way he switches between Bruce and Batman, it's so clear, it's so distinct what he's doing, and it's so natural, but it happens in the space of a moment. It's clear he's given thought to it. And again, Batman doesn't sound like some inhuman creature, right? Like it's not like, if I'm being interrogated by Christian Bale's Batman and I'm saying, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be uncooperative. What did you say?
Exactly. Yeah. Can I have
You know,
subtitles?
right.
Right.
We got something very, so for one of my favorite moments for striking that balance, and again, like you say, making Bruce Wayne the affectation and bringing him up in register, so that Batman does exist slightly at a like a lower timber than even somebody who speaks with like a throatier voice, right? It comes down here more often than not, but it's not inhuman. And I appreciate that choice that he made, and I sort of find it amazing. I don't know if it's just because people are trying to find their own way, other actors are trying to find their own way with the character, but it's amazing to me that nobody else has gone. He's doing it right. I could do it my own way, but also that's the correct way to do it, because I don't always think that's true of a character, an actor, a scene, but in this case, I very much do.
Yeah, and Joe, maybe you can speak to this because like around when this was, I was like, when I was recording, 91, 92,
Mhm.
I was still very young in my understanding of comic books and comic book history. But, a lot of the interviews I've seen is like, aside from like, Kevin Conroy's, past with having to hide who he was and being in the closet because of his Hollywood career, he got the character and he immediately understood that Batman is the true persona. And it seems like he also made that the forefront in for like writing at the time that Batman was the guy, like, and Bruce Wayne was the mask. I don't know if like, because I think like writers have implied it, but it seemed to be more of a thing once, Kevin Conroy started voicing the character and the character became more well known through that.
He crystallized that, yes. It had been postulated or been shown in the comic books of that time and prior that basically on the night that Thomas and Martha Wayne were gunned down in Crime Alley, Bruce Wayne dies too, basically, and he becomes the Batman. Whether he's 8, 10, 12, that changes how old he was. But Kevin Conroy took that and obviously elevated that to a higher level. And as you said, made Bruce Wayne the affectation, and Batman is the real guy, kind of like the way Byrne switched it up in '86 with Clark and Superman, which is the way I like it that way. Clark is the real guy, and Superman is the put on, is the costume, and vice versa with the Batman and Bruce.
Sure, and that's reflected in dialogue too, right? We see that when oh man, I can't remember. I think it's Martha talking to Jonathan when Jonathan is, or maybe it's Martha that's worried, and Jonathan says,
Yes,
no matter what, he'll always be our Clark.
right. She says that. It also says in that origin episode, I want to be like people to think of him like that nut in Gotham City. Right?
I always thought of that.
Yeah. No, it was perfect. It was right for the time, early '90s. People look back at the '90s and they look back at '90s television and they say it's cheesy at times and a bit over the top. Some of the things that were on TV. This animated series was anything but that. I mean, this was not cheesy. At times, it could be funny. There was humor, there was peril, there was mystery, there was intrigue, there was high stakes, and it was just fun. It just drew you in. I don't know what it was like. James, how old were you? Chris, how old were you when it premiered?
I was 12,
Okay,
11,
so
12. Yeah.
so as a 12-year-old sitting down, what did you think? What was your first impression?
Oh, it was like amazing. I thought, for one, I was like, wow, look at this, because like at that time I was just starting to like be reading comic books more, and also, I will say when I was younger, I treated the Batman Adam West show as like serious. Like I didn't realize it's like a comedy. I'm like, oh, okay. Like I took it at face value.
Right.
And
So did I.
then
Yeah.
and then when like 80, I was like 9, 10 when when Burton's Batman, like it came out, like, oh my god, look, this is Batman, the dark and brooding guy. And then when the cartoon came on, I was so much in the mindset, having grown up with so many films that I loved also becoming cartoon franchises. I'm like, oh, they're kind of continuing the story. I didn't like realize until like, the young mind and trying to figure things out, didn't realize, oh, this is its own universe, because it shared so much stuff with the Burton continuity, the music and the character designs, and a lot of the moodiness. But it immediately just blew me away that I got a continuation of this Batman that I really enjoyed. And then since Batman the animated series produced way more than obviously Burton did with his movies, this he became Batman to me. And I like I said, he became, like he's always been like the status of like this is Batman. And I always would measure, like we have obviously talked about in the show many times, the who's your favorite live action Batman.
Hmm.
but it's always sort of put up against the Kevin Conroy Batman.
Yeah.
And as
Oh,
Chris,
yes.
as you said many times, Chris, and I've agreed, and Joe's agreed, like that's the voice when I read the comics too. Since I started reading Batman comics after the animated series, that Kevin Conroy is the voice of Batman.
It really aligns with what he says in the Batman Beyond episode Shriek, when Shriek is trying to drive him insane and make him harm himself. And at the very end, Terry says, obviously we know that like you're not insane, or no, he says, how did you know the voice wasn't inside your head? And Bruce goes, well, I know I'm not insane. And Terry says, I hope you're for one, for one, I'm not insane. He goes, I hope your other argument is more compelling. And at that point, Bruce says, well, the voice kept calling me Bruce. In my head, that's not what I call myself. And Terry says, what do you, oh, yeah, you would, wouldn't you? But that's my name now. And Bruce says, yes, tell that to my subconscious. And it's very much in line with, I think, what so many of us think, which is you can show us different Batman as much as you want. We're just always going to read Batman in Kevin Conroy's voice.
Yeah. Chris, I have a question for you about a particular episode. And
Yeah.
it's not a Batman animated episode, it's a Superman episode. It's called Nighttime. You guys familiar with the episode? So now, as an actor, Chris, Kevin Conroy has to to set it up. Batman is missing from Gotham City, and Robin, comes to Metropolis to try to get Superman's help to find Batman. Then later on, we find out what's happened to Batman, the Batman. But as an actor, he's really playing three roles in that part, because he's Bruce Wayne, he's the Batman, and he's the Batman impersonating Superman. So it reminded me, right? So what does it take to pull off something like that as an actor, Chris?
But I think it was Tim Daly pretending to be Kevin Conroy.
Was it really? I thought they got Conroy to do. Okay, I could be wrong about that.
Kevin Conroy's in that episode, but I'm pretty sure, and listeners, correct me if you think I'm wrong, and this might be something I can just look up. But my understanding is that was Tim Daly doing an impression of Kevin Conroy.
Oh, okay. Well, that's also amazing too.
Thing to be, well, and also, part of that would be Nightfall was, I think it was the fifth episode they had done together with Superman and Batman, because World's Finest was a 3-parter,
right?
And I'm pretty sure there was another episode, The Demon's Head, that came out before then. So this would have been episode number 5. And as Kevin Conroy had discussed, he didn't like doing the video games. He thought it was super cool when it was done, but like he just sat in a room just doing lines for hours upon hours upon hours. He said, whereas, when we were recording the episodes, they wanted us all in the same room. So all the actors would get in the same room and they'd record it like it's a radio play. That's part of how so many of them were able to play off of the energy that Mark Hamill brought to the room.
Mm-hmm.
So my suspicion is that, and this is totally just conjecture, but it's what I think of as an actor, what I would have taken away from it, is that being in the same room as Kevin Conroy, and every account I've ever read, every account I've ever heard, is that Kevin Conroy was just an extraordinarily warm, kind person, very welcoming. I would think that after several episodes of working with him, Tim Daly would just be able to go, let me try my hand at that.
Wow.
And be able to do that. So I'll look it up while you guys are chatting, but I'm pretty sure that was actually Tim Daly. That said,
I like that better, actually, to say the truth. I think that's incredible. Yeah.
It would have been a very layered, nuanced approach to it, I think, for Kevin Conroy to actually be Superman being Batman. Because the thing is, you're somebody who's trying to imitate somebody else's speaking pattern, but you're not the person. It's 3 steps removed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which makes it that much harder. So at that point, I think, one of the shortcuts that I would take is, what do people think of when it comes to Batman? It's one of the reasons why the first thing we hear Superman say as Batman is, Jim Gordon says, where have you been? And he just goes, away.
Yes.
And Jim's like, that's all I get. And Superman just like nods very curtly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like Robin is back there sort of like throwing him hints and like stuff like that.
He reaches on the wrong side of the belt for the bat whatever.
The grapple.
The grapple. Yeah.
He smiles and Robin like nudges him like.
Yeah.
I'll look that up, but I'm curious now.
Interesting. That's an interesting. Yeah. Okay.
fell down obviously a rabbit hole watching different Kevin Conroy videos, and I don't know the context of it, but The Daily Show many years ago did these, I guess, shorts online called The Daily Show with Tim Daly was like part of like these weird sketches and
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh, there's
I
one.
remember those. Yes, yeah,
Yes,
There's
and
one
then they had
particular I still adore.
those were hysterical.
yes, and then the Kevin Conroy one where he shows up in Tim Daly's house and grabs him by the throat and it's like, I want you to remember the one man who beat you. They're great. So if you get a chance, if you haven't seen them, audience, go check it out. But the one with Kevin Conroy and Tim Daly acting out basically scenes from The Dark Knight Returns is fantastic.
Hey, Tim Daly was Richard Kimball for one season. The show didn't last though. They tried to bring back The Fugitive, but he was Richard Kimball for one season. So yeah, so it's interesting. Very interesting guy. I don't know what Tim Daly's doing right now. I have no idea, but he was also great in the role. But
yes, he was great. Yeah, they were perfect. I mean, they were again another voice actor who I think of for Superman is Tim Daly. So it's
well, Chris mentioned the world's finest movie, and and Chris, I think you talked about this before. The first meeting between when Superman and Batman first meet, and Batman flips Superman over his shoulder. It's a great scene. That scene is layered with so many different things going on there as they're feeling each other out. It's just an amazing tour de force by two actors to make that scene work. Yeah, it's incredible stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, and again, just sort of what he brought to it, what Kevin Conroy brought to the voice was just magic. I'm not finding anything on here, but I'm confident. Again, if any of our listeners know for certain, we'd love to hear from you. But I'm confident that was Tim Daly pretending to be Kevin Conroy.
Yes, we would definitely put that. Correct us in the comments, or let us know in the comments when this episode goes up. So we've already kind of been talking about some of our favorite Kevin Conroy moments and some of our favorite animated series and movie moments. And Chris, I think you said it best. So, I mean, I think we each have our thoughts and lists to kind of share some highlights for Kevin Conroy as Bruce Wayne and Batman here. And I would say, like, there are so many great episodes of Batman the animated series. Some of the stuff that I might bring up today is not maybe some of the best episodes, just because Kevin Conroy wasn't in it that much.
Sorry, really quickly, I also wanted to note I'm glad we're recording this episode today. It's very apropos because Kevin Conroy's work also extended to Justice League. And believe it or not, today is the 21st. We're recording as of November 17th. And today is the 21st anniversary of the premiere of Justice League.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
I am getting old.
Wow.
Okay.
I remember it was a 2 or 3 part episode.
Yes,
called
3 part.
Gathering. And I remember that we gathered at friend of the show and frequent guest John Whittemore's house, James, if you remember, to watch the premiere of Justice League with a bunch of mint people. I remember.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was kind of amazing at the time, just the fact they were giving us a Justice League show, and again that Kevin Conroy was going to be. They were building, like, I never kind of thought about this until just like this weekend and this week rewatching episodes of Batman and Justice League Unlimited and Batman Beyond. That's a very comprehensive DC universe.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yes,
it's also a very good DC. I would say, like, I almost like parts of it better than like the DC universe we have, and it's obviously far surpasses anything they've ever tried to do live action, or even with the brand of animated movies that came post, the Batman animated series, Batman Beyond, and Justice League time. I mean, there's some great movies there, and they've adapted some great works. But in terms of a comprehensive DC universe, we didn't realize they were building it at the time, but they did. They built a whole universe.
Yeah, I think it works not only because of the directing and the writers and showrunners, but you had consistency with the voice actors, with Kevin Conroy, with Tim Daly, with Susan Eisenberg as Wonder Woman. So you had Michael Rosenbaum as Wally West. I have a favorite moment from Starcrossed that I want to speak about later, but as we go on, that involves Rosenbaum and Conroy. But I think that it works for many reasons, but I think it's it works because of these fantastic actors.
Yeah, and it's something that's commonplace now. Of course, they're going to build a universe, but at the time, we didn't know they were building it. Like the fact that they picked up threads from Batman the Animated Series and Superman the Animated Series in Justice League and in Batman Beyond, looking back, I'm like, wow, that was incredible.
Yeah.
It was incredible that we got closure to Batman Beyond in Justice
Right.
League Unlimited, which is that I feel like at the time is unheard of. Like that another show picks up another show's
Right,
like
and they were
endpoint or
doing the
something.
thing that they were. I mean, again, I know we're mostly talking about Kevin Conroy today, but they were also doing a thing that we praise Marvel for now. You know, when Guardians of the Galaxy was announced, everybody was like, "Wow, okay, that's impressive that they're willing to like go with a property that's not really well known." But meanwhile,
Hmm.
Batman in I think it was the third season that they introduced Jonah Hex.
Yeah.
You know, they did that in Justice League too. They brought in a whole bunch of characters that, like, you know, there's a whole episode about Booster Gold. Like, you know, they were bringing all sorts of characters that you didn't know unless you followed, but they just trusted that they would work in the. You know, there was a whole episode around the Question and Huntress
Yep.
for Justice League Unlimited. Like, so they were doing something really special. And in some ways, not all. I'm not trying to like siphon off all the credit to them, but like in some ways they were doing what, you know, what everybody's praising Marvel for now, which is bringing in the lesser known properties because you're confident that the core makes it work, and the
Hmm.
core was built on Kevin Conroy and Tim Daly.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, no, I think it's. I think it is right to give them. I mean, they definitely. I think without the Justice League and such Batman animated, such Superman animated universe, it paved the way for the stuff we have now. I mean, I think there's no doubt that the storytelling we get now with and the superhero amount of superhero shows and stuff we get now is no in small part influenced by the fact that that universe worked and works.
I wonder if Kevin Feige was watching those animated Superman and Batman and Justice League cartoons, and maybe that was the seed planted in his
I
brain.
mean, so much of that transcends comics. So much of it has aged so well. And again, some of the dialogue is really well written, but also it's just an opportunity to show levels to a character that oftentimes isn't given enough levels.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going with the MCU analogy, like Kevin Conroy is the Robert Downey Jr. of
Oh,
that
without a
universe.
doubt.
Like they built that universe on Batman on Kevin Conroy's
Yeah.
voice, and they took it really far. I mean, they took it a
And
long
you
time.
know that because there have been a lot of Batman properties that have come out, but the announcements were always the exciting things about games like the Arkham series was they announced, oh, Kevin Conroy is going to be Batman, and that was always the coup. The coup was if you could get Kevin Conroy to voice Batman again after all that time, after all those years, because he stepped away for a while, and there are a bunch of projects they did without him, which
Mhm.
is fine. But it was always a coup if they got Kevin Conroy to voice Batman because it was always like, oh, this is going to be good,
Mhm.
and that really again speaks to just how beloved he is as a voice actor, and that's to say nothing of the fact that like he was just in life, he was just an extraordinary man. So that was something that always struck me is that if they got Kevin Conroy to do the voice of Batman for a project, then it was always worth trying.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just goes to like, you know, again, I mean, Chris, as an actor, I'm sure you know, and as Kevin Conroy said, like the other people playing Batman, there should be other opportunities for people to have the opportunity to play Batman. Like, you know, Kevin Conroy can't, as much as we would want, can't always voice it. But and as controversial and not well loved or mixed reviews as it got, the fact that he and Mark Hamill came back to do the Killing Joke, even though the movie is not the comic all the
Mhm.
way through, and even though that comic is obviously very
Mhm.
controversial in itself, it was amazing that the two of them came back to do this, you know, crucial part. I think that was the big selling
Oh yeah.
point. And that was the only reason Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy said they would both come back to the roles if they did. I think Mark Hamill said I wouldn't come back to do the Joker unless it was the Killing Joke. It's amazing how powerful these two voices or actors are that you know just them voicing it is enough. Okay, I'm going to check that movie
Well,
out.
because this is what lends it the heart. We already know that like animation, they do a great job with animation. We already know that like there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with animation. We know all of that. Like, and don't get me wrong, I look back and I have absolutely been in the process of going back and rewatching a lot of Batman the Animated Series in the wake of Kevin Conroy dying. God, it's just gorgeous. It is absolutely gorgeous. But they can do that regardless, right? They can do that without the voice actor. So that's not really what gives it its heart, as gorgeous as it is. It's Kevin Conroy that gives it heart. It's seeing the work that he does, what he brings to the character. That's really, I think, what was always the most compelling thing about the show. Otherwise, they wouldn't need to keep bringing him back, right? They could probably find somebody who does it for cheaper, or they would find like
Exactly.
they would find a name, right? Because the thing is, like, as they're trying to expand their fan base, why wouldn't they try and bring in like a bigger name to do it? Except Kevin Conroy was the name. Like he's a voice actor that in this particular role people knew, adored, and all that good stuff. So I think that, the show itself is good, but it's kind of like when you I think it wasn't on Leather Wings. It was Christmas with the Joker. It's the second episode
One of
of
your
Christmas,
episodes.
where they haven't brought in Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. yet to be Alfred.
Mhm.
So as I was watching it the other day, because Eli, it's funny, Eli has taken to calling it Ultimate Batman. I'm not sure why, but great kid. Like, let's go with that.
He's not wrong.
No, he's
No,
not.
he's not. See,
He was so Christine was watching too, and she's like, Alfred sounds extra snooty, and I'm like, yeah, this is not Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. And that was, that actor, what he brought to Alfred was a warmth, and even when he was snooty, it wasn't like an affected air. That's just how Alfred sounded, as opposed to the actor, and I'm sorry, I don't know the name of who played Alfred first, but the guy who did it first he's just not that good in that role. And I think it's the same with a lot of other, Batmen that we've heard is they're fine. I mean, if in my opinion, if somebody were to cast me as Batman, I could do a passable Batman imitation and be fine. I wouldn't ruin the movie. I wouldn't necessarily add anything to it, but I wouldn't ruin it. And I think that's true of a lot of people. It was Kevin Conroy who really brought it heart and made it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like I said, speaking of that, I think maybe we could launch into some of our favorite moments of Kevin Conroy as Batman.
Sure.
And I'm going to start with something that's, again, not something you would think of right away. I thought it was amazing that he got to be Batman / Bruce Wayne in Crisis on Infinite Earth and Batwoman. I know Kevin Conroy himself in interviews thought it was amazing. I thought that was also the right type of fan service in an age when fan service sometimes dominates to the point of ruining a movie or story or something. It was the right type of fan service, and it was also the right thing because, like Kevin Conroy, as he admitted, and he tells in that amazing DC 2022 Pride book about how being gay has limited his acting, especially on-screen acting. The fact that he got to be on screen acting as himself, but also play and be the face of the character he's been for years. Again, it's not the Batman that we all know and love, but the fact that they did that and he got the opportunity for it was amazing. I was so happy with like all the time we got for him on screen in that role. So that's like one of my highlights of Kevin Conroy getting to play Batman.
Oh, completely agree. Yes,
it's a good choice, and it's a meaningful one personally, right? Like that's just it. Is that for so long he was kind of being forced to hide. And for anybody who hasn't read what he wrote for Pride Month for DC, like go and check it out. Like it's a tough read. I won't lie. It's heartbreaking, but reading how he persisted, but also how he brought all of that, carried that into Batman. It just made me that much, like, I guess, prouder to like call him my Batman, if that makes any sense. So I can absolutely appreciate that, like on a very personal level. That would be a very like affecting performance.
Yeah, and also I was like watching in preparation for this, and sadly we'll never get to see it. But like they last year, I guess during still the like part of the pandemic, they did a table read of the Batman Beyond script Out of the Past, and they had everybody on a Zoom and they recorded, and it's on YouTube. But I was watching, I'm like, if they ever did Batman Beyond as a movie, why couldn't he could be Bruce Wayne? Like he doesn't.
sure, yeah, right.
They don't need Mike. I mean, as much as I love Michael Keaton, Kevin Conroy could easily be Bruce Wayne.
Right.
He's the voice, the faces he made when he was doing the lines and everything. Like he's there. He's doing it. So it's something we'll never see. But if you ever want to check it out, if you listeners check it out, check out the table read they did last year for Out of the Past, and it's great. And plus, you get Andrew Romano's there. Michael Rosenbaum is there. He's playing Ra's al Ghul. I guess David Warner's passed away, so it's a great thing to watch. But Kevin Conroy, I think, could have easily been Bruce Wayne as an older version, and he also looked pretty good when he was young too. So he probably could have been Bruce Wayne if he was ever wanted to in real life back in the day. But anyway, Chris and Joe, what are some of your highlights for Kevin Conroy?
Mad Love. I like the way at the end where he just taunts the Joker because he said, Harley Quinn came closer than you ever did.
And then calls him Puddin'. I love that
Puddin',
line.
he calls him Puddin'. Yeah, that is just great. And then it says, I aforementioned scene before that, Star-Crossed, when the Justice League is on the run and they
I
hide
knew
out in
that's
that,
where you were going when you said
yeah,
Stark.
hide out warehouse, right? And they have to reveal their secret identities, and Wally's like, oh my god, and he takes Bruce Wayne, Clark Kent, and he pulls off Wally's Cal and Wally West, and is it Hawkgirl who comments about his red hair, something like that? Yeah, I think it's Hawkgirl, but that's a great moment too.
It's Wonder Woman.
Oh, it's Wonder Woman. Okay, yeah,
says
that,
red hair suits you.
yeah, red hair suits you. And then there's a scene, and this is a movie that people don't talk about. I mean, we all love to talk about how great Batman: The Mask of the Phantasm was. Maybe the best Batman movie ever, as you pointed out, Chris, so eloquently. But Batman Sub-Zero is one of my favorites also.
That's really good.
Yeah.
And there's a scene at the end when the entire platform is crumbling in explosive ruin, and Batman loses his grip on Victor Freeze, and he yells out "Freeze!" And it's such an amazing moment, because it's not, you can see how, and you talked about this earlier, how human he is. He will go to any lengths they'll go to any lengths to save Barbara Gordon, obviously, but he will even do the same thing to save his enemies. And Conroy just imbues that into the Batman, and you believe it, especially when he lets out that scream. So those are some of my favorite episodes, favorite moments. Holiday Nights is a hysterical episode.
I watched that one recently as well. It's one of my favorites.
Another Mr. Freeze episode, Heart of Ice.
Oh, it's so good.
And yes, the aforementioned Christmas with the Joker, of course, and Robin's Reckoning, and of course Two-Face, which of course is in two parts. That's a great when he turns Harvey over after the explosion, and Harvey, there's such feeling, and it's just, not being an actor, I can't make my point as well as you could, Chris, but you know what I'm speaking to. I'm sure when these moments and these dramatic scenes come along, and he just nails them so perfectly, and you believe it so well.
He's fantastic, Joe, in that two-parter, Two-Face thing, because I have it on my list too. The Harvey line, but also just the way he acts as Bruce/Batman, and you can hear in the voice the friendship he has for Harvey and the concern he has for him through both parts. It's excellent. I think it's like some of the best like Bruce Wayne Batman in the Batman animated series is that two-parter.
That's my favorite of the entire series. The Two-Face two-parter is my favorite of the series. Yeah.
And just to speak to it, also you mentioned I also put on my list Demon's Quest Part 1 and 2.
Oh yes.
And when that last scene when after he's done the sword fight with Raish, and Raish is about to fall in the last. What happened?
No,
strike
go
three.
ahead.
Strike three.
Yeah.
But after Raish is holding on with the sword, and even then he reaches out for Raish. He's like, "Take my hand, come on,"
Yeah.
And then he was again just showing his humanity. Like he just sword fought with this guy who was going to run him through, and now he's trying to save him from the Lazarus pit from dying. It's again Kevin Conroy's voice there just shines through.
I'd like to make one observation. For years, 80 plus years, comic book fans, Batman fans have always asked the question, why the hell doesn't the Batman kill the Joker? Why does he put acid on his Joker-mobile brakes? Why doesn't he, just strangle him? Why? The only Batman, the only interpretation, the only iteration of Batman where you could actually believe that Batman wouldn't kill the Joker is the Kevin Conroy.
Which, I know this is not the point, but I will say that as Eli is watching these episodes with me, it's been interesting. It's been nice, actually, because whenever Batman comes back and he's going to do a thing, and periodically Eli will say, and I'm sure they talk about this sometimes at school, and I'm not really sure what he's watching here that necessarily that gives him the idea, but I also know that we see that sometimes in the Marvel movies. But he's like, "Oh, Batman's going to kill Joker," and I was like, "Nope, Batman doesn't kill."
No, Batman doesn't kill.
It's kind of nice to be able to say that. I don't think I appreciated that. I appreciated when I was younger. I appreciated that Batman doesn't kill. It was nice that was a line you wouldn't cross. But I appreciate it that much more as a parent now that I can comfortably say, "No, he won't. He won't do that."
No,
but it's just so more believable to believe that of Kevin Conroy's Batman than say Christian Bale's or anybody else's. Yeah, or that lunatic in the recent Batman movie, the Batman movie. So yes, which you haven't seen, right, Chris?
No, I still haven't. At some point, I'm going to do a group watch with with our friend of the show, Josh Bernhardt, and our
Okay.
friend Mike Lees, but no, I haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah, it's nothing.
Um,
It's okay, but
well, and again, just
yeah,
this is what Kevin Conroy did, and he didn't do it intentionally, but he just set an impossible standard for some of us. He just
yeah,
had,
yeah.
um, and he does it in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's, I was going to mention that Bane is one of my favorite episodes, but it also has that. It has one of my favorite moments where he says, he trashed my car, Alfred, between two guys. That's real
Mhm,
person.
mhm.
So sometimes he does it with humor. Sometimes he does it with feeling, but not affectation. Like, it's so genuine. I love Robin's Reckoning.
Ah,
The
great.
two-parter Robin's Reckoning it's just fantastic. But I love that we see Bruce get upset and angry with Dick and making him stay home and shutting him out. And at the very end, Robin says, you were right to leave me at home. You knew I wouldn't be able to control myself around him. And Bruce says it wasn't that. It wasn't that at all.
Mhm,
Zuko's already taken so much. I couldn't bear the thought that he might take you too.
right.
He doesn't like tear up or anything. It's a moment that is delivered without any need of like additional dialogue. It's not like a resolution thing. We hear the emotion in Kevin Conroy's voice. He delivers the line in a pitch perfect way that still sounds like Batman. And then Robin doesn't. This is also, like, for me, on a personal level, I love it's the sign of a healthy relationship too, at least in this way. That Dick understands that's a really big step for Bruce to be able to say.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so all Robin does is say, "Come on, partner, it's been a long night. Let's go home." And, like, like, that's what you get out of him. But it's one of my favorite moments that sometimes we get it like that. Sometimes we get to hear that emotion, and sometimes it's the adult that we hear, and sometimes it's the child that we hear, like in Beware the Gray Ghost.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the Adam
It's
West episode, right?
the Adam West episode where Adam West plays Simon Trent, an actor known for his role as the Gray Ghost, on which we learn that Bruce Wayne as Batman has, like, modeled a lot of things that he does, a lot, like the car and the costume and all that stuff.
Mhm,
And at some point, he voices his disappointment that the Gray Ghost is not who he thought he was. And it's like, so it's interesting because it's that it conjures up, a kid who's disillusioned with his childhood hero. Like, I just find it fascinating that he could play that kind of range. And for somebody who is supposed to be, or is often portrayed as, infallible, all-seeing, and able to shut all his emotions down, I think Kevin Conroy does a great job of, like, like, going through that range of emotions. I don't have them in any particular order, but I will say that I think that, I'm trying to remember the name of the episode, but it's in Justice League Unlimited, and it's when 10 of the Royal Flush gang is like a little girl, and she
Oh,
has,
yes.
yeah, psychic abilities, and she's affecting the world, like her psychic projections are real, as it turns out, but she's, like, going to have a seizure, and when she has that seizure or that aneurysm that will kill her, that will have, like, real world backlash. And so Amanda Waller gives Batman a device that should, well, actually, she says, "I have a device that should, kill her." And Hawkgirl's ready to take it, and Batman says, "No, I'll do it." And so Batman goes, and 10 lets him in, and he's the only one who's allowed in. And she points out, she says, "I can read your thoughts. That's why I let you in. I knew you weren't going to use that device on me." And he says, "No." And she says, "She's going to die soon." And he says, "Yes, I'm sorry." And they sort of share the fact that neither of them got a childhood.
Mm,
And Batman is very, like, you know, it's funny because a lot of actors, a lot of new and neophyte actors and people who aren't actors think, "Oh, the reason you get a big part with lots of lines means you're a good actor." Well, that's partially true, but honestly, it takes a lot more work to be an actor in the background who's responding and reacting to everything than memorizing lines. It's way easier to play a character who has a lot of lines because we always know what you're thinking. Like Hamlet. Hamlet has,
mm,
it's the longest Shakespearean play, Hamlet is, and Hamlet has a ton of lines. We never don't know what he's thinking.
mm.
But that's not always the case when you're talking about other characters who don't have as many lines. They we when we are playing as actors, when we're playing characters who have fewer lines, we have to work harder because we don't always know what we're thinking, because the lines aren't there. So in these moments where he's using only a couple of words, like it's tough to convey what it is that he's thinking and feeling. So the way he says no, the way he says I'm sorry, and then I know this is the animation part and not the Kevin Conroy part, but it's only because of my attachment to Kevin Conroy that the next bit works. Is that she says, will you stay with me? I'm scared. And he sits on the swing next to her, and then he holds her hand.
Mhm.
She dies. Like, that was always one of my favorite moments too. Just those little, again, one word answers, but to be able to cram so much into the word no, that takes a skilled actor. It just does.
That episode, I actually just watched that episode before we jumped on today. That episode is Epilogue from Justice League Unlimited.
Epilogue, thank you. Yeah.
And it was Ace that he was consoling, and that actually takes place within the same episode where
Was
Terry
it not
finds
10? I
it was
thought
eight.
that.
No, it was Ace. Is
It was
the
Ace? Oh, I thought it
is
was-
Ace.
okay.
But and it's the same episode where Terry goes to Amanda Waller to find out that's the story
Right.
she tells him to like calm him down, which is also beautiful because once he realizes Bruce is his father, but Bruce doesn't really know that. When he go the final scene, Chris, just to go back, like he said so little in that scene, but the scene at the end where he's like, you can see the love in terms of how 85-year-old Bruce is delivering things to Terry, like Gordon is waiting for you. Did you eat something? You got to keep up your strength. Like it's very moving. The whole episode's very moving. Having just watched it, just it's a father and son tale. But he through that story about Ace, he gets to like really learn like who Bruce really is. Some aside that I guess Bruce never shows him up until that point.
Right. Another really good one, if you haven't watched it recently, it's Harley's Day Off. Harley's Day Off is very, it's very funny in general, but I love the way it ends when they're back at Arkham and Harley says, I just got one question. I've given you so much trouble over the years. Why'd you look out for me? And he says, well, I had a bad day too once. And he hands her the dress that like originally she thought she had paid for. Well, she had paid for it, but then didn't stick around long enough for the tag to be taken off. So then the alarm went off and she thought that she was being accused of stealing. And that's what sets off this like cascade of events. But like just the way he says that, I had a bad day too once. That was really.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I guess there's so many great episodes. I also like to highlight. I was again listening to all these Kevin Conroy interviews. The episode that he thought was his favorite, at least in the interview that I watched, and I rewatched it, is "Perchance to Dream" from the.
Oh my god,
that's a really good one.
And he's excellent in that. I mean, that's a whole tour de force for Kevin Conroy to be both Batman, Bruce Wayne, and Batman. The whole thing that Batman can't accept a reality. That's perfect. It's he needs it's not real to him. The same thing and goes back to the Batman Beyond episode we both spoke about, Out of the Past, when he gets to be younger again, and Terry thinks he's going to be happy, and Bruce is like, Kevin Conroy portrays like it's a cheat. It's not natural. It's just the lines. You can so much of Batman is in the delivery of like it's a cheat. It's not natural. It's amazing.
Yeah, another good one for Kevin Conroy specifically is Over the Edge.
Oh yeah.
Over the Edge is a really, really good one because it's filled with such range. That's the one where during the fight with Scarecrow, Batgirl is knocked off the top of the building and dies.
Oh, that's the I think it's the opening episode of the season 4, right? Where they changed the kind of the look of the show, right?
It's like halfway through. It's like halfway through season 3 when they changed the look of the show. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And man, it's a good episode in general, but like but hearing again Kevin Conroy do the work. One of my favorite parts is towards the end when Bane ambushes him. Bane says, to the death, and Batman says it makes no difference now. And then they fight, and Bane has him in a chokehold and says, "Time to die," and Batman just says, "You first." Like the delivery pitch perfect. Like that was part of what I was thinking coming into today's episode is like, what are some of my favorite episodes? Like Almost Got Him versus what are my favorite Kevin Conroy moments specifically? And like Almost Got Him is just a really, really well written episode all around, and like it's the villains who make that episode, right? It's I threw a rock at him. It's all that stuff that makes that episode. So that's not, for me, that's a great episode, but that's not a Kevin Conroy episode. Whereas Over the Edge is a Kevin Conroy episode. Epilogue. Yeah. Kevin Conroy makes those moments makes those moments work.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chris, like to kind of follow up your over the edge, I was also going to add was the last one on my list that I came up with for today was Nothing to Fear, where he also gets blasted by Batman gets blasted by fear gas, but that's the episode where he overcomes it by saying the classic line, "I am vengeance, I am the night, I am Batman."
I am Batman.
Yeah. Another really that's a really good one. Another one that I absolutely have to bring up if nobody has watched. If you haven't watched it, like go and watch it. It's so silly, but it's so good, and the ending is just really, really nice. But it's season 1 of Justice League Unlimited, and the episode is called "This Little Piggy."
Oh.
And
Okay, yep.
and Cersei turns Wonder Woman into a pig,
Uh-huh.
and Batman is like trying to help her. And at this point, we know that like there are romantic overtures between the two of them. We know that like they're interested in one another, but they can't necessarily make it work. As Batman points out, you know, you're a princess, you're a princess sculpted out of clay and animated by magic, and I'm a rich boy with parent issues, something like that. But at the very end, Cersei is refusing to turn Wonder Woman from a pig back into Wonder Woman. Batman gotten the help of Zatanna, and they can't solve it. And he says, "All right, what's the price? I know all magic is the price." And then he sings "Am I Blue?"
Yeah. Oh God.
To get her to turn Wonder Woman back, and he does, and she does. Cersei does, and so there's the song, which is fun, and then there's the moment where Zatanna says to him, like, "Is there anything you can't do?" And he says, "One thing I've never been very good at is saying thank you." And that's like a nice little moment between him and Zatanna. And then later on, he's talking to, at the end of the episode, he's talking to Wonder Woman, and she says, "What do I miss?" And he's like, "Not much." And kind of like talks about it. And then it turns out that she actually did hear the song, and so she like walks away humming it, and that's a nice moment. But that's all again more Kevin Conroy of Batman trying to cover up his feelings for Wonder Woman in front of the rest of the league, but being willing to sing this song. It's great. It's really great.
You're right. That's a good one to bring up, Chris. Yeah, the animation in that is great too. When he starts singing, the house lights dim, the spotlight comes on him, and it's it's just great. Yeah.
It's really good. You mentioned all the movies, and there's a bunch of stuff I'm not going to get into in Batman Beyond that is also just really, really good. Like one of my favorites, honestly, is I think it's because the introduction of Batman Beyond, I think, was just a 2-parter. I don't think it was a 3-parter, but now I can't remember.
I think
it's called Rebirth.
Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure it's in the first episode that as Terry is escaping the Joker gang, he rides the motorcycle up to Bruce's gates, and Terry's obviously in trouble. And that's when Bruce shows up and he says, "Get out of here, all of you! You're trespassing." Mm-hmm. And just the way he delivers that line, I just love it in that Batman growl.
Yeah, it's Batman. Like, yeah, we could. I haven't had time enough to go through all the Batman Beyond stuff, but it's a two-hander. I mean, as much as it's Terry McGinnis's show, Bruce Wayne really anchors that show too, and Kevin Conroy does such amazing work in that series overall that it's fantastic. And again, rewatching.
Will Friedle doesn't carry that by himself. It's him and Kevin Conroy.
No, yeah. And again, watching this is a little aside from it, but watching like the table read, I heard them when they were discussing when they did the episode The Call. Apparently, that was like the blueprint that Paul Dini and Bruce Timm used to show the network that they could do a Justice League show. So that was like their built-in behind-the-scenes pilot to show that we can do Justice League after Batman Beyond. So
that doesn't surprise me. It really doesn't, because they've been doing stuff like that since the beginning, right? Because ultimately, the opening of Batman the Animated Series, that entire sequence, which, unless I'm mistaken, that's the only title sequence I know of that tells an entire story. Like, I can't think of any other show introduction that tells a whole story. It's often snippets or whatever, but this was one where it's like, no, you just got an entire mini episode of Batman in the opening credits, right? But that was their pitch. They used that to pitch Batman the Animated Series.
It was brilliant then, because it's a great opening. It's it's animated. Yeah, it's very iconic. Yes.
Yeah, no, that opening is I had watched it a bunch of times. Like, I've seen this before, but I'm not going to skip the intro this time. I'm just going to watch it.
That's just it. I unless I'm banging episodes out like one after another, like watching several in a row, I never skip the intro. I just don't. I like it too much.
Yeah. I mean, the intros of a lot of these, again, we live in an era where shows don't have intros anymore. So it's sort
Yeah,
of like
unfortunately.
actually novelty when you go back and watch the old shows that they actually have opening credits and they don't just go main card and right into the show. But the Batman, all the animated series episodes. I mean, rewatching Justice League episodes, like I got to sit through this intro. This intro is good. I mean, I get to see all the heroes. I get to see some clips. This is excellent. So
We can blame Murphy Brown, the TV series, for that. I think it was one of the first shows to skip the opening. Still a great show though. But yeah, I miss the openings. I like opening. I like the openings where you get the classic themes. Without openings, we wouldn't got the Bonanza theme or the Hawaii 5-0 theme, right? So bring back the openings.
yes, I'm more for that. Bring back the openings. Well, do we have a we probably just at some point have to do, I think, a separate episode on just the animated series, possibly just going through Batman Beyond and Justice League Unlimited. But it's hard not to talk about them when we're remembering Kevin Conroy, since again he's I think he's the glue that held all those things together for so long.
Yeah,
I'll just be remiss if I don't say, like I said on I think last year's Christmas episode, that one of my favorite lines from the episode, the adaptation of A Man Who Has Everything, when Wonder Woman's like, "What do you get the man?
yeah.
When do you get Superman for Christmas?" And Batman's just like, "Cash."
Cash. For the Man Who Has that's based on the Alan Moore Superman annual for the Man Who Has Everything. Yeah.
Yeah, another great adaptation and great episode. Same thing. Like rewatching it for this episode, that Denny O'Neil adapted the Demon's Quest for the animated series. Like they made that 2-parter out of that comic book.
Right, and they adapted the I can't think of the name of it now, but there was one with a werewolf, which was adapted from a Len Wein, Neil Adams story.
Yes, and they adapted the Laughing Fish story.
Laughing Fish from the Marshall Rogers and Englehart run. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So great stuff. I don't know really how to wrap this episode up because
Well, I have a few things about Kevin Conroy, the man. He was born in 1955, and we know he passed away on November 10th, just 20 days short of his 67th birthday. I didn't know this though. He was a Juilliard trained actor who studied under John Houseman and roomed with Robin Williams.
Mm-hmm.
And the best thing I like about this is he's a local boy from the town of North Hempstead, from Westbury.
And Joe, you'll like this because I was listening to the Michael Rosenbaum interview that he did a couple of years ago with him, and he tells the story that when he was going to Juilliard, he actually was almost going to room with Christopher Reeve. But
Wow!
Christopher Reeve's apartment was like I think he needed $800 a month, which he didn't have, but it was beautiful. It was like a penthouse overlooking the city. And he only had the budget for like $300 a month. So, but he went to Juilliard with Christopher Reeve and almost roomed with him. So
that's the penthouse that Lois Lane got in the first movie, then.
Yes, I guess so.
On a reported salary. Okay, yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and if he roomed with, his roommate was Robin Williams, and his other roommate was Kelsey Grammer.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. Yes.
I knew about Robin Williams, but not Kelsey Grammer.
Wow, incredible.
Yeah. So, well, Kevin Conroy, you're always going to be a part of our life, our pop culture, and we will continue to enjoy your work. It's a shame we got so much out of you for the time you did it. So I guess it's maybe just being greedy, wanting more. But I would have liked more. And I would these episodes will be with us forever. The games and everything. His voice as Batman will be with us forever. So we will continue to remember you, and you will continue to be the voice of Batman in all our heads as we continue, as the character continues to grow and evolve. I guess as we wrap this up, we can wrap it up with a few recommendations. Aside from that, I recommend watching all the episodes we've highlighted here and checking those out, because I think some of the stuff we spoke about today through Batman and through Justice League and for Batman Beyond are some of the best episodes, some of the best Kevin Conroy stuff. But Chris, do you have any separate recommendations for this episode?
No, I don't think so, honestly. Yeah, I just it's gonna be a while before it sort of like settles in. So at this point, no, I'm really just suggesting that people go out and watch Batman the Animated Series. If you're a video gamer, go play the Arkham series, especially Arkham Knight. There's a lot of really good dialogue in there. And then his DC Pride story right now is free to read. Finding Batman is the name of it, and I would absolutely go and read it. It's worth your read. And I know we've mentioned this on other episodes, but look up his story about about being a volunteer days after 9/11.
Mm.
Apparently, he was in the midst of recording. He was in the midst of recording Justice League when 9/11 happened, and so he took a couple of days off from recording so that he could go serve first responders. So go listen to that story. It's really really wonderful, and I know we've talked in the past about, like, sometimes we need to be able to separate the artist from the art, whether that's musician and their music or an athlete in the sport, whatever it might be. But for me personally, the two are always connected, and it makes me feel better about this artist in which I'm invested, or this athlete in which I'm invested, when they also they exhibit amazing human traits outside of the work they do. So to know that Kevin Conroy, that public service was so important for him, to know that that was something he prioritized was his community, meant a lot to me personally. So Finding Batman is a good read. Short. It's free right now, and absolutely watch Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. What I think is arguably still the best Batman movie.
Mm.
And then I think, go watch that short video about him telling the story about serving the volunteers, serving the first responders in 9/11.
Yeah, that's
Well
excellent,
put,
Chris.
Chris.
Yeah. And also, Chris, you posted that amazing video, I think, on the Facebook page where he's talking about dressing up as Batman for the kids in the neighborhood, which is
Yeah, I was spamming the group with stories and stuff for finding clips for a while there, because there's no shortage of them.
yeah, but that was fantastic. That's a fantastic story. So go check that out. Joe, do you have anything additional recommendations for the show?
All the recommendations you guys just put forth. You definitely go watch Batman, Mask of the Phantasm, and when you're done with that, watch Batman Sub-Zero too. It could use more love. It's a great film. It really
You're
is.
right. It is overlooked, Joe. You're right.
And two things I've recommended before, but I'll recommend them again. Batman, The Adventure Continues, Season 1, graphic novel, and Batman, The Adventures Continue, Season 2.
Yeah,
And I
very good.
believe DC is working on Season 3 as we speak, calling those stories from the digital services, and putting them into a trade. So yes, and ultimately, all I can say is, wherever you are, Kevin, thank you.
Those are great recommend. Yeah, I will second the whatever what Joe and Chris have said. I'll add on to it that I think it's still on YouTube that Batman: The Adventure Continues, the first comic, issue 1. Kevin Conroy read that comic online, so
Oh
you can go
wow.
and actually watch him narrate and do all the voices, including Batman's, for that issue. So I recommend checking that out. And I'll recommend also, we brought it up, is watch The World's Finest movie too. I
Yes.
don't know.
Oh yes.
I don't know if they
Yeah,
broke.
that's some really excellent work.
Yeah, World's Finest, and also Return of the Joker too. I know that didn't get a lot of love when it first came out in the theaters and everything, but Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker is an excellent.
I think it's solid. Yeah.
It's a solid movie too,
Yeah,
and
there's a great line from that movie, World's Finest. He's never around when you need him, referring to Superman.
Yeah.
Yes,
so.
it's great stuff.
Well, I think that's it for this episode. Again, thank you, audience, for listening. But thank you, Joe, for being here.
Well, you're welcome, James.
And Chris, thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad we got to do this one.
And audience, if you as this stirred up some memories and thoughts of Kevin Conroy, and we've made a bunch of posts in the Facebook group by the time this comes out, but this will be an additional post. So please feel free, if memories have come up, episodes, moments that you would like to share, please share it there. Please leave your comments about this episode. And we thank you for listening, and we will talk to you next time.